to be here at 6, so.
Okay.
We can move on.
Minutes.
Did you, go with Mark yet?
No, the other one.
The other one? Did you want us to sign this letter for the Department of Alcohol tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
You like it? Now, you want to sit in that, you don't want to sit in that one.
Is Ben coming tonight, Danielle?
No.
We just got in over.
He just sent me everything for you to review.
Okay.
Anything else on the minutes here?
Yeah, there you go.
We've got a personal count. 1,500 per acre, not 15,000.
These all separate deeds?
Yeah.
For the cemetery? All right, call the meeting water. And first, review and approve May 18th, 2021 minutes.
She's making a slight
Oh.
revision on it.
Okay.
Correct the 15,000 per acre to 1,500 per acre. But, with that correction, I, move that they be accepted as written.
All approved? All right. Review and approve June 3rd, 2021. You said you looked over this one?
I did,
Okay.
and I looked over this one.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept the warrant?
I move that they be accepted.
All in favor?
I didn't sign the other one, but I looked at it. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess we've got to sign all 20 of those deeds at some point there.
20? Sign this, but you sign that.
Just one here, or two?
Ooh, it's a good one. Malden Solar, you're up next. I believe that's you, right?
That's me.
Okay, what you got for us?
Hi, I'm Paul Williamson from Walden Solar. We were before the planning board on Thursday night, I believe, with our proposal for a new solar project that's just off Route 113 here on J.B. Baldwin's property. And at that time, it was brought to our attention both by, I think, a couple of gentlemen here, who are in the audience, as well as some of the planning board members, that there's an existing town road that goes through the project area, as we have outlined. And we had that research, there's some ambiguity, and so from our end, I'm trying to research the current status of that town road. And so I'm hoping to come before you today to see if I can identify the records, understand from your perspective the current status of the road, and if the road is active and currently in place, is there an option for us to reroute that? And just kind of start kicking off the discussion of possible solutions around this. And then those solutions, by all means, we are currently looking at ways that we can change our layout that would work around the road as exists.
Okay.
So everything's kind of on the table from our perspective, but we want to make sure that we understand the current status as correctly and accurately as possible. Mm-hmm. One of the things that kind of led us to our current situation is the company that has done the survey of the property for us and the survey of the road and the research for the road did reach out to Wes, the code officer, and according to him, the road had been abandoned by the town for the last 50 years and was no longer considered an active right-of-way. And so that may or may not be correct. According to some of the comments that were made at the planning board meeting last week, we were led to believe that might not be correct. But there were also other comments too at that time that I think create some of the confusion for us. There was a comment that there's a gate on the road and the road's currently gated. The folks that we have engaged to do all the surveying have not encountered a gate on the road. And the other thing too is looking at the historic maps. On some of the historic maps for the town, the road exists. On other, it does not exist, and it's also changed location over the years. So I'm just here to see if we can kind of work through this and figure it out.
Things up a little bit.
Yeah.
No, we haven't done anything with that road for a long time. It's
On the inventory still,
yeah.
still on the map.
So it's still active town road.
And, well, use the term active might be misleading.
Right.
The last time I was up there was 4 or 5 years ago, and there was a gate at the time across the road. But I guess the important thing is it provides access to the town farm property.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Did Gary McNeil use that to haul some logs out across there?
I don't know that he did or not.
I think he did. Yeah, 2-3 years ago, we had some stuff done there.
Yeah, he took them out that direction.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it's been abandoned. I don't see any record of it being abandoned or discontinued or set aside by the town.
Beacon Road from 113 goes up, and Jack Fricker uses to have access to his land, but beyond there is a dirt trail for a little while, and then it peters out and gets in the swamp area and goes up through.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about Farm Town Road.
Farm Town Road. That goes across Beacon Road, yeah.
It goes across.
I can tell you for a fact, like 20 years ago, it was used, because they used it for a sewer dump up through there.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know.
I used to take my kids up in there when I taught school here.
Yeah.
We used to walk up the
So when you said it had been abandoned by 50 years, that threw flags up to me right off quick.
Well, again, I'm simply going by what said, and I've never met Wes. I don't know.
When I've been there 50 years, a meeting or two prior to that, Joe had mentioned something about, being involved in a committee and surveying it or something, went way back 50 years or so. And
Oh, was that the Deacon Road you're talking about?
yeah, the one that goes.
Yeah, we're talking a town farm road.
I know
It's
that
all-
crosses it, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was talking, when I said 50 years, I was talking about Deacon Road.
Yeah. On that,
Yeah.
from like town farm road over towards the campground.
Yes. I'm gonna dash across my office for a moment, I'll be right back.
And while Russ is doing that, if I can throw out some concepts and ideas, but by all means, if this is the access to the town farm property, we want to work cooperatively to make sure that you still have that access and, you know, maybe there's consideration there for reroading the road, and we can help make sure that that access continues regardless of our project. There was some comments and questions during the meeting last week about whether or not we can reroute the road and what the approvals would be. This is what the state statutes say. I don't know if there's any difference in local town policy or ordinance.
There's also a reference somewhere that requires the, vote from the legislative, I just looked it up the other day, but I'm not sure that would stand in the way of actually doing it. It's just something that you have to do.
If a vote from the state legislature or?
From the town meeting vote.
And is that in the town ordinances?
No, I think it's a state law, and,
This map is labeled correct. This map, we have Deacon Road labeled where Farmtown Road is.
yeah, there's several maps that are.
Yeah, that's how
Maybe we've got document error there. Deacon Road doesn't go into the solar farm,
Right.
Okay.
Right, that much we understand.
Okay.
And I don't have all the copies of the different maps, but we looked at maps going all the way back to the 1800s. And on some of those maps, you know, in 1942, Tarn Farm Road is actually in a different location than it is right now. In 1973, it shows it, or maybe it's 1983, it shows it in an approximate location. In the 1800s, it's there on one map, it's not there on another map. So, so, you know, if we can kind of help each other kind of understand, you know, its current status. And one of the things that was suggested to us by Sebago is they would like to go into the town library to attempt to research this in the historic records. Unfortunately, the Baldwin Room is only open on Saturdays, every other Saturday, from 10 to 2. And I'm wondering if we can maybe arrange for a special appointment for them to go in at business hours to do that research.
You can call Sharon, she'll set up an appointment.
Well, we talked about it, and what's in there are public records that we just don't want people falling through. And so, I guess if you could explain, this is a request for information is what it is. And, you can ask, written or verbally, I guess we can take this as a verbal request for what?
For the historic records of the establishment and location of the town room, the town farm room.
The establishment.
At some point, the town has, for it to be a town road, the town has to establish it as a road and register it therefore.
I don't think so, but it's been in use a long time, and so the establishment might be an issue. We might be able to say that we have no record of it being disestablished
Yeah,
as a road. But it's in the state inventory of our town roads.
so it's in the state inventory.
And,
Gary McNeil might be able to shed some light on it, 'cause
Who?
he's, Gary McNeil,
and,
because when he took his wood out, he said, once I get on a town road, I can use a town road. And apparently his land
It's on the other side of it.
gets into the town road.
Yeah.
And when the person who built Matt Fricker's house, Woods, when they built the house, Selectmen tried to stop him from using the Deacon Road. And that was when the research was done, that the town had maintained the Deacon's Road to the town farm road, and then taken a right and gone down the town farm road. So while Gary was on the board, that research was done.
And maybe that's what we're asking for, is that existing research. I don't wanna
I
reinvent
think
the
you're
wheel.
looking at something in people's heads.
That's, and as much as possible, we'd like to get the records that back that up.
Because, I mean, people used to do things around here because it was convenient.
Sure.
And they didn't document what they did, and they didn't ask the surveyors to come to the party.
I fully understand that. And if at some point, the conversation moves forward to a request to relocate the road, and if the town is willing to consider that request, one of our goals would be to establish its current location in making that request, and where we found some, again, ambiguous information. So I guess, in essence, the request is, can we kind of sum up the record so that whatever we're taking for the next step is as accurate as possible?
I'm sure you're probably aware that the town road's not considered abandoned unless, until records reflect that it has not been maintenance for 30 years.
Okay?
Yeah.
I was not aware that was, so that's a definition of
If somebody
abandonment.
was clever enough to write it down, then there's a record.
You gotta be very careful about roads, because the state legislature changed different definitions and different applicabilities as time went on.
Sure.
And, I can't make any definite statements about whether roads are, and what abandoned means.
Right.
So I would be very careful there.
Understood. And at some point, you know, I think there's a variety of different solutions to this issue. And we have no intention on any kind of a legal fight on this, but we do want to define it as well as possible. Good luck.
we'll take it for action, to look for whatever documents we can find.
Bob is president of the Historical Society.
Okay.
And I suspect the answer is on the other side of the wall, though, in the record
Have to
over
check
there.
it down.
Yeah, because, I think, was it Chris Anderson that did the survey?
Chris Anderson's notes are at the Historical Society, or were last I knew.
Okay.
Yeah,
That might be-
probably too.
I was just looking at the state map, and it shows the town road goes up and goes off, and then it says Deacon Road, so it's labeled wrong.
And I think that's one of the things that led to a little bit of our confusion here. So, what are our next steps?
up to you, but I think you would assume that you don't have to reroute the road.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we can find this information for you, but we're still gonna need access to the town farm.
Understood.
And so perhaps you work on a design to reroute the road.
And that's something you'd be willing to consider,
Yeah.
working with us, okay? And, Bob, you had mentioned, that's what we found on the statute for relocating a road.
Yeah, I'll dig in and find the statutes. I just looked at it briefly over the weekend, and I think what it says is that there has to be a town meeting to approve accepting a road. Now, talking about relocating it, I don't know, you know, if that's a different road or same road, but I think to be safe, let me just, put it before the town meeting. I don't think you'll find any objections to it, because it's on land that's owned by, somebody else anyway, for the most part.
Right. No, we most definitely don't have any objections to whatever the required process is.
Yeah.
We do wanna kind of try to satisfy this issue as efficiently and quickly as possible, because it, you know, again, we had a certain expectation, and not that it's anybody's fault, some of the records were hard to follow. But we would like to see if we can move forward with the planning board, and our application with the state. Can I follow up with you directly, and can we just talk a little bit about the process in the coming days after you've had a chance to look up that?
Yeah, give me your, email, phone number right there.
You have to build a road to the standards to which it is at right now.
Well, that's all on his email there, his contact.
Oh, thanks, got it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my telephone number on
All right, Paul, good.
there. Okay, great. All right, thank you all very much for your time and consideration for this.
Well, thank you for coming.
I think that's all I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, a little bit up there.
The amazing thing was, this was right at the end of the review, and people go, oh.
Yeah, there's two things I didn't understand at that meeting. And the other one is the one over North Baldwin. I don't think they're doing their research very good, because they put that onto a road that isn't maintained for winter travel.
Okay.
You know, just,
They may not even know about the concept of not maintained winter travel.
well, they don't know.
Oh.
What are they gonna do?
Yeah.
Do they expect us to maintain that road?
I think they said they were gonna try to get a, shorter route in. Use
But that's
use the other
up on-
access one.
Well, they moved the whole thing once already, because it was closer to the road. It was closer to one, Route 11.
It still ends up on Carl Burnell Road. That.
Yeah, I know, but it's closer. That's all.
Yeah, but then you'd have to get permission from the town to maintain it in the winter if they wanted to.
Mhm.
Right now,
And
it's
they may
only,
not realize that.
right now, it's only a snowmobile trail in the wintertime.
Yeah.
They cleared it when they were doing the pit in there. I can't remember the name of it. Didn't we maintain it then? When we plow all the way through there then, when Pike's Pit was in there? And that's about halfway across that road.
Yeah,
So I
sitting
think-
on the left-hand side.
Yeah, and I think we maintained it then.
I don't know. That would have been quite a while ago, because
Yeah.
I bet it's been at least 20 years now since anything's been done. They just plow the Y
Yeah,
by David Blanchard's house.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they do now.
and on the other end, they come up a little bit, well, I think Sebago might do that.
Well, that's where the trucks turn
Turn
around.
around, yeah, where that the house was just built, it was a little bit beyond
Yeah, I
there.
don't even think they got out past that,
You
do
know,
they?
I don't know,
I don't think so. Because it opens up a whole ball of wax if they do.
I always thought that if there was a house on there, we have to maintain it, we have to plow it. Even if it's, no matter what, if there's nothing on
Is there a
there.
house on
No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, my driveway is 2/10 of a mile long.
Yeah, but it's not a town road, is it?
It was,
It was.
yeah, but, I don't, yeah. I think you have to, you probably, you are legally expected to maintain it, but I don't want to, so.
No. Yeah, there's a new house on the other end going in. It's just
Yeah, right at the end of the
within
road.
sight of the Route 11. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all kinds of new houses over through there now.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we did when Pike's Pit was in there. We had to go over, I think Don Brown is, road commissioner, it was either Don or Jeff DeWale. It was, you know, like you said, it was quite a lot of that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, they've been in there for years.
did they do it as a favor?
Not sure, I remember my father saying that, you know, they were in there, so they had to plow through it. I can ask them again.
Like you say, that's been at least 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right though, Jim, at least as far as the house.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. Because we had that issue a number of years ago, we were trying to back off from maintaining a lot of these
Yep,
town roads that are really somebody's long driveway.
right, Method Road,
Right.
yeah,
You got some of them that we're doing now.
yeah.
You know, there's one house on the end of it, and I don't think we should be plowing that, but we do.
I think it's state law, because at one point they were accepted as town roads, and
Mhm.
therefore,
I think Method Road used to go all the way through. They could come out, just put in San Pond Road. Like Wolf Hill Road, you know where that is?
Yes, I do,
You know, yeah. It's still named, it's in the Gazette.
but you can't find it anymore.
No. Yep. All right, signed cemetery deeds. This says we got 15 copies.
I think we can do those later.
Okay. All right.
Deb threatened me, she said, don't forget. That's why it's on the agenda.
All right, we got, Ben Thompson's review documents and signed. We got some abatements, a tree growth on,
Where are we? Do you vote on these first?
usually just goes over and explains
Okay.
what they were and,
Well, this is Gary McNeil's open space application. Then there's the Clinton Sanborn reassessment based on a full inspection.
oh,
We
yeah,
talked
yeah,
about that the other day.
yeah,
And then there's a tree growth application by Ricky Day.
okay. All right.
I didn't find out where you're supposed to sign it. Okay, this one's staying together. Let's see if I sign the, where did that get signed?
Under
assessor's signature?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you're right.
because you're
We'll
the
sign it.
assessor,
I'll sign
you're the
it,
assessor.
I'll sign it at one time. You get it wrong, he'll send it back.
No, yeah, you're supposed to sign the assessor. I heard you, that's good, glad you're here. I guess you're at the bottom.
Again?
I don't know if you're
All
on.
right, so here's, Ricky Day's tree growth. Yep. Space in there. And hidden amongst all that was application for tree growth for the estates of James Shipwell. Don't recognize what that is,
It's what was really.
sign it there somewhere.
She wants to put this in tree growth so she can cut it. Is that what the deal is here?
So you can cut it, or so you can?
They've been working on that for a long time.
Yeah, there was a tax problem there.
Yeah, the forester has been a bunch working on it, so that must be what she's come up with.
Once before, they went to, because the back taxes, you know, all year.
Yep.
But they wanted to cut the land, but they couldn't because there was like a hold on it.
Oh, yeah.
So evidently they put it in tree growth so they can cut the land, so pay the taxes, I hope.
I will just say before my time, no.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I don't understand that.
I don't even.
Sure. They wouldn't touch it on account of the liens that the town had on it.
Oh, the loggers wouldn't touch it?
No.
But once it's in tree growth, the loggers will touch it? Even though the
I don't
town
know.
still has liens on it?
I don't know.
Can you answer me, if the town has a lien on a property that's in tree growth and you seize the property, what happens to the tree growth status of the property?
Stays as it is. Stays straight, but if, you know, if the new owner picks it up, they've got to go through the process of transferring.
But I mean, it doesn't, there's no penalty paid, it just comes out of tree growth.
It's not like the CUP is travels with the land.
When the town owns it, I guess its status is kind of frozen, but we're going to be trying to get it back into the hands of the owner.
Oh, yeah. I'm just curious.
No, but, no,
I haven't seen that happen yet.
No.
Never foreclosed on a tree growth property yet.
Alright, update on Paul, from Paul on foreclosures. You said you talked to him today?
Well, I just happened to be in the office and he called, so I took the call and stuff, and he's gonna advertise the lot. But he's also gonna get in contact with Ricky Day and Warren Swan. You know, they're the two
The brothers?
property owners and stuff, and they've shown some interest in that.
Okay.
property. And he's gonna drive into Sand Pond and Babe's Lane and look at that. He's researching it to see if there's any rights to the beach or anything in there. I don't think it is. So it's a back lot.
I looked at the deeds and the property was purchased back in the early sixties, I think. The people who purchased it also had some other lots in there, I think, that one or two lots that they sold. Hung on to that one, and, but I couldn't find any description of the layout of it. You know, how wide and how deep and stuff, so there's, from a age of the property, it would be grandfathered, but whether it's still buildable or not by, you know, the setback requirements, I
And
don't
I
know.
would hope there's somebody that owns a piece of property around there would pick that up to add it to their.
They might, yeah.
A lot of those lots were formed around in the late 60s, 67, 68.
Yeah, it was somewhere around there.
Leo Alea did a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
Over in Limerick when he first started breaking stuff up.
Alright, next step with the TIF. I think we ought to have a meeting with Mr. Hims.
Yeah.
Just like kind of a one-on-one with us and him, and
Just,
maybe involve Ben too.
I think we should.
I can tell you that I was glad Ben was there the other night.
Me too. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want that on a workshop? Does it matter? Do you wanna aim for a workshop or take a meeting time?
Doesn't matter to me, or if he wants to meet some afternoon here,
You just post it,
yeah.
what works for everybody, while I have,
Be
get
kind of
together.
executive session though, because we're meeting with an attorney.
I don't think so. I think he's just an advisor to us, he's not really a legal.
Okay.
I'd like to know what MMA is gonna say first.
Oh, I don't think they're gonna tell you anything, Dwight, other than, what he's talking about is I put together an email to, send to MMA, like, which is just expressing frustration with the whole thing. The solar farm business, is, all up in the air.
True.
And every developer that comes to town will tell you that they expect they're gonna pay something else.
Yep.
And,
And the laws are changing constantly, you know, the rules.
well, I don't know if they're changing, but they're talking about changing them. And from what I, read before and understood and, you know, can find on the internet is that it's like Betty, you know, the town gets reimbursed at 50%, but I don't see that written in law. My understanding is that that's a policy by somebody in the revenue department or something, and, so who knows, I don't know.
And we got told something else last Thursday night.
Well, that's what his expectation was, that his expectation is that it's exempt. That's what the law says. I think the state policy is that they're not gonna leave the towns hanging, so they'll give them 50% like they do with Betty. But the concern is, where do they get the money? Cause that's, the state's gotta now find the money. And as you've read in the paper over and over again, they're concerned that they've, been a little too generous and are going to change the law, but we heard last night that they're not gonna really address it this session. It'll be held over till next year, and, I mean, that's what,
Baldwin 6 people, said, ones that talked about it, and they said they would pay $2,000 per megawatt. Whatever the law was, they'd pay at least that much.
Yeah. And, I did a quick
We still don't
calculation.
know on that.
Huh?
We still don't know on that.
We don't know, and, what is it? That's what my little screed MMA is, you never know who's the best place to get influence at the legislature. And you can contact your representative or senators. The problem with that, I find, and I don't know about you folks, is that there's a lot of politics there. And they might take your concern and bend it toward what, some point they're trying to push. And not really try to address your concern. MMA is supposed to be balanced. They represent all the member communities, not all communities in the state are members, but I think there's some 400 or so.
Yeah, I think there's only 6 in the whole state that aren't.
Yeah. And so they're supposed to try to take a few to represent municipalities in their best interest, so. That's what this letter is for, or is it just an email to their legislative liaisons to, say, hey, we're kinda lost here. We don't know if we should recommend a TIF, or if we should just do a moratorium. Cause we don't know how it's gonna impact our, state valuations, or county valuations, and the impact fees from the town. We don't know anything about this. And
What I didn't like about the sound of the TIF is, if you don't have a program to spend the money, they don't give you money and you lose it, you never get it. And since we're more country bumpkin and not Westbrook, we don't have a lot of programs here. And I think they had a list of programs that qualify and some that don't, so it has to be specific programs.
I'll read you this email to our legislative liaisons. The town of Baldwin Planning Board is in the process of reviewing conditional use permit applications for its 4th and 5th solar farms. We don't know if these are the last ones or just the front of a tidal wave. Generally speaking, the planning board and the select board are supportive of increased use of renewable energies, but the open questions related to these businesses impact town finances. For example, the taxes in the long term and their impact on the municipal valuation, as relates to state revenue sharing, county taxes, and the town's share of school district funding are starting to make it unclear if we should be allowed or blocked. On top of this, the town has been approached by one developer to establish a TIF with a credit enhancement agreement. We are not so naive to think that the transition to a carbon-free future will be free, but too many solar farms could alter the rural forested characteristics of this town for the next 30 years and beyond. That may be a worthwhile sacrifice if there are also long-term benefits for the community. Will the community have cheaper electricity, more reliable power, a better quality of life, a lower tax burden? So far, all we've been able to ascertain is that the impact on town tax revenues and on the state, county, and school impact valuations are to be determined. There is even disagreement between developers and assessors as to the initial value of the equipment and how it should be depreciated over time. It's difficult, if not impossible, with any certainty to know what the current state taxing regime is, to say nothing about longer term. Within this uncertainty, it becomes very difficult for us as town leaders to recommend more solar farms in this town, or if a TIF or the CEA should be advised. We would like you to advise us on what you currently know about these issues. We probably won't get much. And second, we would like you to advocate on our behalf for statewide policies that don't put the burden of solar on the backs of towns that host the solar farms. Just getting it off your chest.
It sounds like quite nice.
It does, yeah.
Well, if your valuation, if they're not paying enough taxes to offset the valuation, guess who's gonna pay?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yep.
Oh, you mean the state would give us the valuation for having the solar farms, but then not let us get taxes out of them?
Exactly.
Yep.
I hadn't seen that coming.
Well, we don't know.
We don't
Yeah.
know.
So what Ben has told me, and he's shown me in some tax policy documents, that for Betty, which is the business equipment tax exemption, the town's evaluation, at the end of the year, after you do the commitment of taxes, the assessor produces a document called municipal assessment report or something like that. And it goes to the state and says, this is all the stuff that's in the town, and these are all the tree growth and everything. So it characterizes what the assessment is of the town. And the state turns around and increases the assessed value, because in the assessment, you'll see it if you go and look at the tax online. The assessment for business equipment is reduced by the value of the business equipment, so that's all exempted. So the town goes back and increases that by 50%. That represents the amount that they give you back in taxes. So there's a lot of, I don't know what they do with tree growth and other things, but, you know, there's a lot of this manipulation of the information, but the idea is that if you get the taxes, you're gonna get the increase in valuation, at least at the state value level, and I'm sure the county does the same thing. And it rolls back to the, as the gentleman was saying the other day, probably the biggest thing is the impact on school impact. I don't know.
Thank you, Bob. I had as my note on the questions to ask, solar farm tax dollars. That whole thing that you're addressing is exactly to the point. And thank you very much for addressing it.
We know where it's going.
Right.
You know, just,
Right.
Might be great. I mean, so far, the ones that are being put in don't seem to be a visual burden to the town, or, a tug on the town's resources, you know, to need a lot of services, but you get enough of them eventually, they'll be putting them one right next to the other, you know? It's like when they started raising sheep, everybody cleared their land for sheep.
Cranberries a couple of years ago, everybody decided to start raising cranberries all over the place. Market bottom right there.
Okay.
Okay, so we covered that again. So what do we wanna do with it?
Can we call them in someday during the week and just sit down with them? We gotta tell them what the town is like, and hopefully he might have some ideas to,
Yeah,
if there's really a way that we can use a TIF
right,
for this project.
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah,
I just don't want us to be the financial institution for the bad now.
right,
You know?
yeah.
Well, yeah.
They're looking to get their taxes lowered,
Sure.
you know, just,
Yeah, they're trying to keep their costs down, and make it, they're gonna sell within 5 years, to make it more attractive to a buyer.
that's helping them.
Yeah,
What's it
helping
doing
them.
for us?
Right,
Nothing.
right.
I think that's why Buxton is running scared right now. Buxton's turned them down 3 times.
Wow.
You know, and it's Glenville that they turned down.
Oh, wow.
Hmm. They keep coming back and.
Yeah, they renegotiate and they keep shutting them down.
Really?
Yeah.
Town meetings don't like to vote on things 3 times. You pretty much know what the answer's gonna be number 4.
Well, if you stand up in front of the town at town meeting, and tell them the town wants to finance or we think it's a good idea to finance, you know, a solar farm, how do you think that's gonna go? Not very good.
Is there a date and time that does not work for anybody, so I can at least document that, like what doesn't work, when can you not do it?
Right now, any day for me. Good for me.
After 2?
After 2, yeah, 2 o'clock or.
Yeah, I'm all right, unless I get a call.
What about the grandkids?
Tuesdays,
Tuesdays?
yeah, that's not, doesn't work the best for me.
No Tuesdays, Bob, grandkids?
I don't have any commitments. for
No,
any
no,
day.
no, okay.
I think I've got a doctor's appointment on Thursday, at 10, I think.
He's out for a little bit this week, that Gregory, so it would be,
I thought he said he was out from the 5th to the 12th.
Oh, I think so too, yeah, you don't
So
get.
if you're gonna get him, you gotta get him the next couple of days, or he's gone for a while.
I got a dentist appointment Thursday, so,
so it would be in 2 weeks anyway, and plus I have to
Yeah.
post it,
right, yeah, that's right, too. So it'll fill me up for 2 weeks anyway.
so it'll be the 3rd week in June, or shoot for that.
Yeah, it's fine, I don't have, I can't plan that far out.
Yeah, alright, we'll just
Well,
do
you
what
got-
he says.
You got,
You want him in person, right?
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, that, all that week's open for me, so if you want, whatever you plan,
Alright.
do stuff around it.
Yep.
Alright. Fallen cemetery request.
That's the one,
I didn't know if you needed to discuss anything, I saw the email status.
we got a lady who's a distant relative who's talked to Dwight, I think, once, probably, and to me, a number of times, who wants the town to, certify to her that a, gravesite of some sort will be ready at location unknown. I keep trying to get her to come over, show us the deed that she has, and then let's go down and look in the cemetery and see what's available, but, I'm still working with her.
Okay.
I think I talked to a sister or something, and the two sisters, they don't get along.
One of those,
Somehow, the granddaughter of Edith Coe, who was one of my grandfather's sisters, and, she's buried over there in West Malden Cemetery, but I don't see a whole lot of space around there. But I don't know.
That's why I told her, you know, get a hold of, I give Gary Withy's number. So if he's got a fraud or anything, he can do it, let her know. But that, we don't get involved in that.
She might not even understand that process, so, anyway.
Stamp pond review, Rick Bowie's out.
Yay.
They did that twice today, everything's like it's supposed to be.
Still.
They
okay.
moved one picnic table, but other than that,
They just moved it.
Yeah.
Still there though. Still there, good.
yeah.
We
Did you
got-
see the results are in, and there's no detect, so that's good.
Oh, yeah, that's right too,
The beach test,
the water test.
Yeah, the water test went
Good,
good.
good, yeah. I think because it's just, we just got done the winter, so the water, not warm, but it's not cool either, so. Not too many people have been in there yet.
And there's nobody, last year we had a problem with ducks around the beach.
Yeah.
This year we haven't had
I
it.
raised it a little bit, yeah.
The water was just as clear as a bell when I took the sample.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, when I was out there, it was pretty.
the
I
ad
could-
should run this week for, help for Chad, so
Okay,
I haven't seen anything yet on Facebook, so.
what day are they gonna do trash pickup, do you know?
He just said once a week, he didn't give me really a time or day, is it?
Is that something you can find out so we
I
can
can,
kind of
yeah.
plan on it?
Yep,
So, and it'd be better if it was like a Thursday or even a Friday.
over the weekend.
Yeah.
We usually walk it up.
Yeah.
Bill payments, fiscal year change update.
Yeah,
Okay, Danielle sent me stuff and I looked at MMA's, they have what they call a package on the whole issue. And a lot of what I said were issues last time are not, really, according to them, that the selectmen can decide the fiscal year, but they recommend that you have a vote at a town meeting to get the sense of whether the people want to do it or not.
Okay.
You know, like a lot of things, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right, yeah.
The other thing was the term of elected officials. They said it would just extend to the next election. They wouldn't have to have special elections to fill, 4 or 6 month gap or whatever.
Oh, I see, yeah. So if it ran, normally it would run out in
March, and you moved it to, the town meeting to, August or September, they would just
Extend that,
continue
okay.
and serve to the next election.
Okay.
The issue of scheduling your tax commitment and everything was, I think as you mentioned before, is you wanna have it set so that both tax bills are issued within the same fiscal year. If you time it right, the first tax bill would come out at the same time as it does now. Because that's set by, pretty much by the state and the ability for you to get everything done. Because it's based on the assessment that, as of April 1st, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so it's pretty much set by, state law in that process. So if we move it, then it would only have an impact on, pretty much those two things, is get it approved or get the sense of the town if they want to approve it. And that would be a job for the selectmen to sell it, if that's what we want to do, sell it to the people. The other thing is to make sure that you've got enough funds on hand to carry you through. Because some people might just only pay half, and they're now paying the whole thing up front. And so they would wait and pay half, so there would be a transition year.
Dollars, yeah.
Well, and it would really just depend on the status of, your finances. If we were to do it right now, I'm not sure. But
So should we kind of plan to bring it up the next town meeting and kind of plan?
I don't know,
Meantime?
I think we're gonna need a town meeting, and we can talk about, I can prepare some notes for you, and information. But because our state valuation came in high, and our school bill came in higher than normal, we're gonna have a tax increase. If we don't get permission from the townspeople to move some money. I think there's money in the fund balance, because the auditor says our fund balance came out very healthy this time. And if not there's a few other reserve funds that we could move stuff around, so that we would stay pretty even with the tax this year. But that'll require a special town meeting, but we could mention at that town meeting, just get a sense of the vote.
Just get a sense of, yeah.
They've already voted to do the twice a year.
Yeah.
We're the only town around here that don't do it.
Yeah.
People have been asking about it, too, where they're at on it.
So I just have to look at the numbers again. We should convince ourselves that it's the right time to do it.
Rec and adult ed request for building use. You got that, Danielle?
Yep, Connie Wood called me and asked just generally if the building was open to be used for some camps coming up. And I just got a call today, from adult ed, and I didn't get any details on when and where, or dates, but just curious if that's something you guys wanna entertain, or not.
I think we ought to wait a couple more weeks at least. We're just going through this holiday weekend and stuff, see what the numbers do. State numbers right now seem to be going down. We'll see.
How's COVID?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some pretty good days lately.
What time of day did they wanna use it?
They didn't really say, some were at night, some were during the day.
How much of the facility gets used by the after school or?
They'll use the gymnasium to eat, but they can only use.
Well, I found out something today too that kinda made me mad. I found out they're paying other buildings, they're giving them so much money but they don't give us nothing.
And we're the only town that has, paid for a porta potty.
Yeah, that's right. And we're also the town that pays to mow the fields and stuff, because they mow their own fields and stuff on other places, so.
What do you wanna do for it?
What's that?
Well, how do you?
Well,
So,
You wanna talk to
is to
Connie?
wait a couple weeks and see.
okay,
That's me.
we're paying for the porta potty, they're using it,
Yeah,
and we're paying to mow the lawn, mow out there, and they're using that
yeah,
too.
that's right.
So, no use until you guys are gonna revisit this in 2 weeks.
And we give them money every year too.
Yeah.
I mean, you look out here,
Yeah, somebody's got our measure.
it's good to see the fields being used and stuff, and that's what it's about and stuff.
Quite a crowd out there tonight.
Yeah.
That's all right, Paul's got money, right?
Right, all these solar farms coming in, we don't, all kinds of.
Okay, so no planning until another 2 weeks.
Right.
Okay. Can you tell Connie Wood that next Tuesday, right?
If I'm at Tuesday.
I'll call her.
I was talking with her
You
today.
see her face to face, so you can break the news to her.
To be honest with you, she's the one that tipped me off to some of this other stuff that's going on. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, she called the porta potty, I said, well, you guys always wanted to do it anyways for the playground.
Yeah,
So.
well, it's just like Sand Pond, I think we're committed to that, because we don't want them using the bushes and everything else out through there.
You'll be amazed the use this playground gets during the day.
Yeah,
This random, like, all of a sudden you see people out there and.
well, that's what it's for.
So.
We have a staff meeting tomorrow at 2:00.
Bruce has something, I forgot to take it
Oh,
out.
Bruce has
I'm sorry.
You got Bruce?
Had a little problem yesterday with the fire truck. Actually, there's gonna be two different problems. One of them got in an accident. I don't see the accident report, I just looked and see if it was there, but we'll get it to you. It's nothing major. It put a scrape down on the side, and it's a new tank truck. And right where the wheel well, there's a chrome piece that screws up in, and that's got bent. And my recommendation is just get that to replace that whole chrome piece. It's only like 8 screws that's holding the whole thing on with a rubber gasket that mounts that. So she asked me about insurance, if it was mine, I wouldn't run it through it, but if you guys wanna run it through it, we can, but I don't think it's gonna be really worth it.
That wasn't with a, private vehicle, was it, or just what happened?
We was putting the fire out yesterday, and the people wasn't cooperating at all. And so everything was in chaos for a long time, until we got the deputy there, and we got the homeowner there on site. But that's beside the point. We was leaving. I drove out around. This place had a circle where you could drive around, so I drove around. One behind me, somehow he backed up, because I know he was clear of the pile when he was sitting there, so he had to back up and then decided he was going to come forward again, when you didn't see
put a scrape down the side, but it did bend that chrome piece that goes up around it, it bent it. And you can hammer it out, but it'll never look the same.
Right.
It would be just easy to look at, getting another piece to it.
Is there a bad scratch, you said?
There is a scratch, but there again, I think just a little bit of the dull of paint, we're talking the scratch about that long in
Oh,
the
no,
paint.
no,
But the wheel wells, the wheel cover and well, whatever you wanna call it, they took the worst part of the damage. And that is one of the
I
people
assume we have a deductible on the insurance.
Well, that's what I'm thinking too. That's why I wanted to bring it up to you, so you guys can decide how you wanna handle it.
To get experienced driver.
Supposedly.
This guy has been in an accident before.
No.
Can you get an estimate of what the chrome piece cost? Can you get an estimate of what the?
I can, and what I would do is probably call E1 or one of those places, start tracking it down. I can't imagine it be that expensive. It's more decoration than anything.
Good.
I can find out the deductible as well. I don't know.
Most of your stuff is 1,000, right?
It usually is, but
I think, I could be wrong.
Yeah, you attach fire truck to that, jack up the prices.
Well, I hate to call E1 because I know it's gonna be 4 times more.
Right.
Should be.
Yeah.
But they might have something sitting right there that you could put on, because I don't know if those wheel wells are all standardized, or they just do it for the fire trucks.
Well,
I think it would vary from the size of the tires.
I believe you're right, yep. That's number one. We had the trucks tested, and 3 of them did not complete the test. Some of them, are simple as a sensor that could have dirt in it or something like that. We'll have to get them here to come to replace the sensor and go from there. One in Northampton, the fill valve that is not closing all the way, so when you go full prime, it's sucking air back through.
oh, yeah.
So that valve, something's happened in there, and probably the easiest thing is, when they come, is just bring a valve and change it out. We're talking a ball valve, 3, 4 inch, I think it's 3 inch. I think that's 3 inch.
Yeah.
Engine 1, on the other hand, he might have major problems, I don't know. I was waiting for the report, it was supposed to be here, and I don't see it. And it was supposed to be here this afternoon.
From them testing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
what's the impact
we passed through colors, the other 2, the minor ones that I was telling you about, when they change the sensor and change the valve, they're just gonna pass it anyhow, just right off that, the work's been done, repaired, and
So you won't have to have it tested, you just,
engine 1, we may have to.
May have to test it again.
Yeah, we have to again.
Yeah.
We had troubles here a few years ago, and we're right back at it again. So I'm hoping it's packing, but I can't tell you. We're seeing what they said,
yeah.
and I'll give them a call tomorrow.
So Bruce, are the trucks sidelined until they get that?
No, and some of them want to do that, and I'm glad I didn't do it, because I can pump water off them. No problem. The only one I would have to watch is 5. I couldn't send it to a dry hydrant and pull, because you'd be, because you're sucking the air.
Yeah.
But as far as unloading, I can do that, and, moving water around, I can do that, and I can use the stuff on it. The same, with the, other truck. It's a sensor, and what happened, we go over that sensor to tell when we got water coming up through, and the thing went right to 29, we know that was wrong. Because normally, you start seeing gradually coming up, and you might get to 16, 17, 18, possibly 19, if there is a problem, but, and that's a sensor that went bad. And the question was, is it under warranty or not? I don't believe it is, and I have, Lake Region doing the work, so I just want to change the sensor out on that, and that should solve that problem. And we was able to get 1 dry hydrant back this past month, down on Purple Road.
Oh, yeah, Giselle said you guys are down there.
We got that back, so thank God for that one. Now we'll start working on Goose Mill or Giselle's, one or the other.
Yeah.
Doing that soon. Other than that, that's about it.
You like working with Lake Region?
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
You like working with Lake Region?
Better than I do, the other guys I never did like, down in Brunswick.
Yeah.
I never did, because they seem to nickel and dime you when they do stuff.
Well, I see, the reason I mention that, I see, was it Tuftonboro was going down Route 25 the other day, so they must have been going to Brunswick with that.
Maybe,
So they're going right past Lake Region
yeah.
to go to Brunswick. Odd.
It's just, you can send it in, and you can look at the past bills, and it's just nickel and dime, this is wrong, and.
Sound like every time I go into roll forward.
I'm gonna say, you send it in for something that's supposed to be $1,000, and then you end up at, 22, 25, something like that.
Yeah. You want to send that, or you want my email?
Email,
Alright.
don't forget the attachment on our letter about the alcohol.
Can I ask, what happened to the, study that was gonna be done about fire barns and?
I have not had it in 6 months.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's on the desk, but I'm gonna do there again, it hasn't been easy for me, I don't know, I think these guys know it. It hasn't been easy.
Mhm.
And
You donated a lot of time in this office right now.
it has been a long time.
I need a lot.
A lot, trying to keep up, catch up.
Did we get our turnout gear and stuff back, and radio and all that stuff?
And that letter, I would like to sit down either this week or next and send out 3 of them like that. And I don't think you're gonna get any of them back. But we gotta try.
Yep.
We gotta try.
Yes, you do.
There's a lot of money with one of them, what
Well,
we're talking about.
There's $7,000-8,000 on one.
I don't know if it's that high, but it might be. Because I don't know how many radios he had, that was the problem.
Can you get a sheriff involved in something like that?
I was just gonna write a letter and have it certified, sent to wherever, I can get the address certified if they received it.
We've been down this road before.
He and I was talking, probably 3 weeks ago, and I asked, because I see some bills come through here, then I asked where the stuff is, and never even got turned in when the guy got done.
Yeah.
So,
I got it,
you take turnout gear at $2,000 a set,
right?
a radio at around $1,000 for one,
Yeah.
helmets, $400 a piece, there's
Yeah.
2 of them, there's another 1,000.
Adding up fast.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot or what.
No, I really wish I could say it's in the works, but it's not.
Well, I'd rather ask here than at a town meeting, have something about,
Boy, it's.
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying.
Just say that, the transition between
Yep.
the two, the chiefs.
He was playing catch up, there's a lot of things that fell behind, you guys know it, I know it last year. There's a lot of things that fell behind, and it's playing catch up right now. And these things the way I'm looking at it right now, the things that would involve, Maine Department of Labor,
Yeah,
probably more important right now, before they come back online.
Right.
I'm gonna get those things caught up.
we don't, when you get caught with anything, we get a repeat.
Done that before, well, that'd be the 3rd repeat.
Third repeat.
You don't do that.
They'll show no mercy there.
Might have to involve his father back.
Okay, you don't want that.
Did the extra keys get ordered yet? No,
No phones,
in the law,
the will,
and,
the key thing,
on the 2 doors,
it will.
okay.
Anything else, Bruce?
No, that's it. Unless you guys got something. I'm not sure I can make it tomorrow.
I think you told us up to money right now.
Ellie, do you want me to email the financials to you, or do you want a copy on your desk?
Just put it on the desk.
She'll run a report where everything's up, okay.
Mary, you got anything?
No, I just don't,
Just
it's
here
here,
for the-
yeah,
do
the
it.
assignment.
You get all kinds of it.
Yeah, no,
Information.
hey, I think this is awesome, you guys are doing a great job, I
Thank
mean,
you.
I just, the way that the country is right now, the only way you can really have any control is to even come to these little smaller, business meetings and things, and at least I feel like I'm having a little, at least I know what's going on
Yeah.
in town.
Joe, you got anything?
No, I can assure Bruce I will cooperate with you if you want to put a fire out at my house.
Oh, it's better than yes.
Kathy?
A couple of things, are the San Juan stickers here yet?
No.
No.
How do you want
Don't
that?
check. And the other, did you get a chance to talk to the prison about painting the building?
No, we haven't done that yet.
You mentioned that they weren't doing it no more.
I don't believe they're doing it, but you,
We will definitely check.
one contact you could ask
Yep.
would be Joe Snubs.
Okay, I'll get it.
And he might be able to put you in the right direction, but the last I knew, it wasn't doing it. This is so short-handed, they don't even, open it.
And that's the same officer that did the meals, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll get a hold.
And how was the water? Goody
Well,
and booty.
it wasn't bad.
Oh, good, okay.
It wasn't bad at all.
Once you go wet.
Once you get wet, it wasn't bad. And,
Well, thank you for that.
once you got out, then the breeze kicked out. It was a little chilly, but I had some fish about this long kept hitting my leg.
Oh, wow.
He
Okay.
was attacking me or something. He didn't want me in there. So, no, it wasn't bad.
Okay, no, those are my primary concerns. Thank you.
What else you got, Haley?
I've been thinking,
Uh-oh.
No, we're in.
don't say, oh. The town's been experiencing some growth, and I mentioned in the town report about creep and whatnot. I'm up to, I think, 7 houses right now, so this may be another bumper year, 14, 16 houses, and we got solar farms coming around and everything else. Should we start thinking about doing something of revisiting and rewriting the comprehensive plan and get some direction of what we wanna go, what direction we wanna go, or what direction we are going, or is it something that can be controlled, or what?
That would be a bad idea, the way things are going.
Well, growth in the town costs more money, but of course, more residents in town brings more taxes. Hopefully it's a balance, you grow, you need more taxes.
Yeah.
Balance. Do we wanna become something like Gorham and Westbrook in 30 years, or do we still wanna be, I think the only way you can really control it is put some limits on land use.
Mm-hmm.
And is that the thing to do? Is that the direction to go? So we need thoughts and input and, is it, can we steer in a direction, or do we want to prevent things, or just open the doors and come on, or what are we doing?
Joe, there was some discussion at the planning board about a requirement that we review the comprehensive plan every 20 years or something like that.
Yep, last I knew it was 10 years, actually.
It hasn't been looked at since it was written.
The problem is that, it's such a job, and getting somebody who wants to devote their life to it, to chairing the comprehensive plan committee, and then getting people who want to devote at least half their life to form the committee, I think is the problem.
Not experiencing it, if the comprehensive plan gets reformed, rewritten in ways or whatnot, then how do you enforce it? And that's you have to design the ordinances to match the comprehensive plan.
Right.
And, so it's a part A, part B, part C, so on, so on. It'll take time. I'll stick my foot in my mouth, I'll say, I'm willing to volunteer to get involved in it.
I think we're ahead of the curve, a little light on it, by limiting the amount of houses that can be built each year in town. Because when you look, you know, you mentioned Gorham, 16 miles, you know, east of us, they did 89 houses last year down there. You know, I don't expect to see that here, but I do expect to see the 15.
Okay. We had 15 last year, we may have 15 this year.
Yeah.
We won't be over 15, that's the limit, so there's
That's right.
30. And the other 5 years, I've had 8, so there's 40,
That's
now we're
right.
up to 70.
That's right.
That's what we're looking
But-
at.
but we're doing-
It's sneaking in.
It's
Yeah,
taken
yeah.
us 6 years to do what's Gorham is happening in 1 year.
Yeah.
So,
But, okay, so do we want Gorham or don't we want Gorham? We don't want 70 or 80.
I don't know that you have a choice.
you know, when I first started driving truck, I can remember going into southern New Hampshire, going into Boston down Route 3. That's where, at that time, that's where all the gravel was coming out of and stuff that was going to Boston. And now you go down and look at it, where all these gravel pits was, these $1 million mansions on the side of these granite cliffs and stuff, beautiful places, you know, so the point I'm trying to make is, the sprawl hit down there and stuff, it just worked out.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I don't think you're gonna escape it.
No, there's always a growth in population, therefore there's always a growth in houses. So one of the things you want to control is what kind of houses. Do you want low-income houses and everyday Joe houses, or ranches, or so in the area to take various things like this, and this kind of control. I think one of the best controls is low-density population, require larger acreage to build on.
You agree with that, Joe?
Nope.
I knew you would, that's why I maybe called you out.
If I wanted to, control things, I'd be looking for smaller lot size in the village commercial district and, leave everything else alone. I talked about this maybe 15 years ago. And that was when the businessmen were so strong in town. And they came back at me and said, no, if you're gonna reduce the lot size in village commercial, then it's gotta be only for business. So I just said, okay, that's the end of that story. No, we're not talking. But, actually increasing lot size to 10 acres, which is typically what it gets increased to, actually increases sprawl, because it spreads everything out. Right now, those of us like Bob and myself and Alan Dolph, you know, who work the land, you need a large area to work. And you cut it down to 10 acres and, you know, it's like, you can't heat your house with wood and grow your own food and cattle and so forth on 10 acres. So you just made it worse. If you want to, do something about growth in town, talk to the large landowners and try to get them to give easements to their property to, land trusts, or give their land to land trusts.
This is something we're seeing right now, you know, it's been unprecedented. For years, it was all large landowners that owned land in Baldwin. Well, a lot of places where these houses are being built, these large landowners have split it off. And now, all of a sudden, there's houses being built on the land that before couldn't, because they control it.
That's Simon's land.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Myself, I think they ought to have a minimum of 2 acres on a lot, regardless where it is. And the reason I'll say that, they build a little house on the end of the Harrison. Nice little house, put a garage on it, but look how crowded he is right now already. You know, he was okay to do that, because it was a grandfathered lot and stuff, so.
Yep.
I bet if he could buy another half an acre from Keith out back there, I bet he'd probably try to do it and stuff, but. I don't wanna see it become like a Gorham where there was a greenhouse.
There's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts, and a lot of different directions to go, and there's no one clear answer.
No, I agree with you.
How country do we wanna stay, or if we have cluster development, so a lot of houses only along the main roads, but once you get into it, then you have bigger acres. I have 11 acres. I live on and use maybe 3 or 4, and that's it. I think 4 acre lots is very adequate for most people.
You see one?
Everything I need on
What
two.
did it go?
Pardon?
I got everything I need on two.
Well, he's already got the culverts over here.
Oh, yeah.
He bought them last year or something, they didn't, the high water was the problem, what it was. That's up to
So,
bid.
it's in a think tank.
You're right.
Right now, I guess.
Right.
Kind of, yeah.
Think about doing something. Get some wheels started. Yeah, one of my thoughts is I'll volunteer time, my time's gonna free up some more. I think I mentioned it to you, and you may know, I plan to retire next year.
Mm-hmm.
I turn 80 years old next year.
Wow.
Close to a little more.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have time, a little more time.
Yeah,
I want to stay involved anyway.
yeah.
With it.
Well, usually. Oh, okay, you?
What about the house across from the library? Have you ever paid them a visit down there?
I was gonna ask that, yeah.
Oh, that little junkyard?
Little
Yeah.
dump
Well,
here.
about every year I do, they clean it up a little bit, and
Did they do
grow
it
a
again?
little more, and
They're gathering at the moment.
together, yeah, it's growing.
It's growing exponentially,
Yeah.
Well, particularly in the last couple of weeks,
yes,
you know, with moving stuff around, blue tops and everything else.
yep.
The people across the street seem to be picking up a little money.
That's down to 9 cars
Yeah.
from 16. Going in the right direction.
I see one of the campers, at least one of the campers is.
Yeah, I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was wondering if they moved it across the street.
Maybe they did, yeah.
I think there's 3 campers across the street.
Yeah.
In the past year, the house you first mentioned, next to the library, I've talked to them, they've made an effort to tidy it up, condense it,
They did.
put it more in the backyard.
Less animals and
Yeah, so.
other things.
Maybe you ought to just drop and give them a friendly call again then.
Okay, yeah, so.